You're listening to the Bots and Bosses podcast, the only show where robots and humans attempt to work side by side. Presented by John Binks, technologist, author, and your AI ringling tour guide. So, buckle up and let's deep dive.
Welcome to the Bots and Bosses podcast, presented by John Binks. This is episode 42 and originally aired on May 19th, 2026. So imagine the absolute oldest institution on Earth, one that measures time in centuries and deals in, ancient manuscripts.
Right, like an institution completely focused on the eternal soul.
Exactly. Now imagine that same institution suddenly pulling the emergency brake on, like the fastest moving technology in human history. It's just a wild collision between the Vatican and Silicon Valley.
It really is. And to understand the weight of this, we would have to look past just the religious framing,
For sure. And for today's deep dive, we're pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources. We've got reporting from Arise News, The Tablet, and the European Times. We're unpacking Pope Leo IV's imminent, honestly unprecedented encyclical on artificial intelligence titled Magnifica Humanitas.
Meaning magnificent humanity.
Right. And we're also looking at the newly formed Vatican AI Commission. Our mission here is to unpack why a former math major pope is stepping in to regulate AI and what this actually means for you, like your job, your reality, and your future.
Because this document, it officially drags AI out of the server room. It moves it from this technical engineering debate about like parameter counts and server farms into a civilization level discussion about human dignity. The Vatican is basically arguing that the underlying mechanism of AI is fundamentally incompatible with human value, unless we put some serious friction in place.
Yeah, and the timing here is incredibly specific. Our sources point out that Pope Leo IV, who, by the way, is the first American pope, signed this text on May 15th.
Which is definitely not just a random Tuesday.
Not at all. It's the exact 135th anniversary of Rerum Novorum.
Right, the 1891 encyclical by Pope Leo III.
Yeah, which basically intervened in the Industrial Revolution. The church looked at sweatshops and child labor and said, humans cannot be treated as disposable cogs in a machine.
And the parallel the Pope is drawing is just incredibly direct here. In 1891, the mechanical machine was replacing physical human muscle, right?
Yeah, the steam engine and the assembly line completely upended everything.
Exactly. Today, the algorithmic machine is replacing human cognition. It's replacing the writers, the coders, the analysts.
So basically, capital finding a more efficient, tireless replacement for human effort. But wait, let me push back on the panic for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
Because we survived the steam engine, right? We survived the personal computer and the internet. The labor market always adapts and people just move to higher level tasks.
Yeah.
Isn't this just history rhyming?
Well, the Vatican's core argument is that the difference is velocity. During the Industrial Revolution, society had decades to feel the pain, organize, and react.
Right. We had time to build labor unions and invent the weekend.
Exactly. We built societal shock absorbers over generations. But with generative AI, this global workforce disruption is happening in financial quarters.
Wow, yeah. A new model drops, and 3 months later, entire departments of copywriters are just laid off.
And that digital speed, it strips us of our agency.
Yeah.
It forces us into becoming what the Pope actually calls passive consumers.
Let's drill down into that phrase, passive consumers, because it feels like the crux of the issue. He isn't just talking about buying stuff online, is he?
No, not at all. He's talking about the mechanism of how algorithms shape our reality.
Right. When you open a social media feed or, use an AI to summarize your news, you're no longer actively seeking out information or forming your own opinion.
The algorithm has already predicted what will keep you engaged and just spoon feeds it to you without any friction.
So you're passively consuming a reality that a machine constructed for you, purely based on engagement metrics.
Which strips away human agency completely. The Vatican warns that the human creative industry is at risk of being dismantled and replaced with this sterile, powered by AI label.
Yeah, the phrase from the text that jumped out at me was unthought thoughts and anonymous products without ownership or love.
That is just a brutal, brilliant way to describe generative AI.
It really is. Think about how a large language model works. It doesn't have an imagination. It just uses statistical probabilities to predict the next word based on billions of data points.
Right. There's no intent behind it. Nobody agonized over the phrasing.
Exactly. And the Vatican gets highly specific about this. The Pope explicitly cautions priests against using chatbots to write their homilies.
Which, I mean, it seems kind of funny at first glance. You picture a priest asking a chatbot for a sermon.
Yeah, like write me a homily on the Gospel of Mark in the style of a TED Talk. But the underlying implication is actually devastating.
Because it breaks the fundamental contract of human connection. The purpose of a homily isn't just to deliver data to a congregation.
It's for a flawed human being to look at their community, reflect on shared struggles, and offer guidance.
Exactly. If a machine writes it, it might be eloquent, but the mechanism behind it is completely empty. It's just a simulation of wisdom.
And bringing that into everyday life, imagine getting an incredibly moving email from a colleague after a personal tragedy. You feel seen, but then you find out they just typed, "Write a sad email to a coworker," into an AI chatbot.
It totally turns to ash. The absence of human intent makes the product worthless. We're facing an absolute crisis of authenticity.
And that crisis expands exponentially with synthetic media and deepfakes. The Vatican is deeply concerned over preserving unique human voices and faces.
Right, because when you can mathematically clone someone to say anything, we don't just lose trust in the media, we lose confidence in the very concept of shared objective truth.
How do you even navigate a world where seeing is no longer believing and empathy can just be simulated? If you are enjoying our podcast, please click like and follow our show, and remember to tell your friends about our show.
It's incredibly disorienting, because when a society loses its grip on shared truth, the guardrails for physical safety begin to dissolve.
Yeah, and if we can perfectly simulate human empathy in text, the next logical step is simulating human decision-making in the physical world.
Which brings the Pope's document directly out of theology and onto the battlefield.
And this is where things shift dramatically. Pope Leo IV issues a stark denunciation of AI in warfare, calling it a spiral of annihilation.
He's not talking abstractly either. According to Arise News, he explicitly cited the current conflicts in Ukraine, Gaza, Lebanon, and Iran.
And we just want to pause here and explicitly state that we are not endorsing any political viewpoints. We're merely reporting the facts from the source text neutrally.
Absolutely. We are just conveying what the encyclical and the news reports cover. The Pope drew a direct line between the horrors of modern warfare and autonomous killing machines.
Right. And the European Times noted that he actually drew the ire of President Donald Trump by criticizing the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. Again, just neutrally reporting the contents of the articles here.
Exactly. But it shows why autonomous warfare terrifies the Vatican so much. Traditional warfare has a human in the kill chain who feels the psychological weight.
Someone who can choose not to fire at the last second because they recognize a target is a civilian. AI removes that friction entirely.
Right, an autonomous drone swarm just processes a probability score and executes without hesitation, without a conscience.
And to fight this, the Vatican is forming a pretty unlikely alliance. Breaking long-standing papal tradition, the Pope is publicly presenting the encyclical on May 25th alongside Chris Olah,
who is the co-founder of Anthropic. It's an unprecedented tech theology alliance.
Yeah, which is absolutely wild. You have the head of the Catholic Church and a Silicon Valley tech founder sharing a stage. And impartially mentioning what the sources say, Anthropic has clashed with the Trump administration by insisting on guardrails against military use and domestic surveillance.
Right. So there's a clear philosophical alignment here between the Vatican and Anthropic on preserving humanity and ethical boundaries.
But let me ask, can a spiritual leader, even one Time magazine called a spiritual counterweight to Silicon Valley, and a tech founder actually enforce global military and business policies?
Well, they don't have hard power. The Pope doesn't have an army. But you can't underestimate their soft power.
So like shifting the global Overton window.
Exactly. The Catholic Church has 1.4 billion members globally. When the Pope issues an encyclical of this magnitude, it makes these fringe tech ideas mainstream for lawmakers to actually debate.
It provides a shared ethical vocabulary, and it shifts the conversation from global warfare right into everyday business.
Yeah, the sources highlight that the Pope approved a new interdepartmental commission on artificial intelligence
to rigorously analyze AI's effects on humanity and guide policies. Right, this makes it a massive strategic imperative for boardrooms.
For sure. So for a listener managing HR or running a business, what's the practical takeaway? Most companies just look at AI for productivity gains.
Right, like how much time can we save or how many salaries can we cut?
But the takeaway is that assessing AI purely for short-term productivity is a trap. The shift is toward mandatory human-centered AI governance.
Meaning cross-functional strategy involving HR, legal, ethics, and cybersecurity.
Because the risk isn't just a technical glitch. If your AI chatbot treats a grieving customer with cold algorithmic logic, you haven't just saved money on a salary.
You've completely alienated your base and breached the public's trust.
And trust is becoming the ultimate competitive currency. Companies have to invest heavy resources in retraining workforces and building verification mechanisms for truth.
Because proving your products and your customer service are genuinely human will be your most valuable asset.
The Vatican is making it clear. Ethics is no longer separate from strategy. Ethics is the strategy.
Ethics is the strategy. I love that framing.
Yeah.
So we've covered a ton of ground today. What's a final thought you can leave the listener with to mull over?
Well, thinking about the Pope's warnings on simulated relationships, as AI becomes flawlessly capable of simulating empathy, generating wisdom, and mimicking consciousness without any friction.
Oh, wow, yeah.
You have to wonder, will future generations even value genuine, flawed human connection? Or after growing up with algorithms that cater to their every need, will they just prefer the perfected synthetic relationships powered by AI?
Man, that is a deeply unsettling but fascinating question to end on. If we lose the friction, we really might just lose the humanity.
It's something we all have to decide.
Today's show was human-inspired and powered with AI assistance. Be sure to visit us, www.botsandbosses.com. Remember, the bots are getting smarter, but you're still the boss.
Well, that's a wrap of this episode of the Bots and Bosses podcast. Enjoyed the show? Don't just listen. Follow the Bots and Bosses podcast and connect with John Binks online. Remember, the bots are getting smarter, but you're still the boss. For now, see you next time.